Hi, this is Reinhard from Everyday Systems. Sometimes you don't realize how much something bugs you until you say it. I guess this is the principle behind talk therapy. Well, podcasting must be a kind of talk therapy for me, because it really rankled to have to admit that I no longer use my general cards in the chain of self-command last episode. It left an aesthetic void in the unity of my system. And I think also a practical one, despite my rationalizations for why one shouldn't invest too much in long-term task management. I still think I was more or less right about that, but one should invest something in longer-term task management, and that my system no longer did was a defect. The good news is that this feeling of dissatisfaction was productive, a creative dissatisfaction, because already I have an idea of how to bring the general back in a useful and elegant manner. It's a natural extension of the officer card mechanism I described last time and this scribal filter. In retrospect, it's obvious. Just as anything you can't commit to on a daily card should go to an officer card, anything you don't want to forget about completely but don't plan on getting around to in the next about 2 weeks should go to the general card. As with the officer card, there's no firm commitment to any given task and no finite amount of time associated with a card as a whole. When the card fills up, you scribal filter any remaining undone tasks to a new one, copying over what's still worthwhile, officially forgetting about what's not. But unlike the other 2 ranks of cards, you don't carry the general around with you because he'd likely get too tattered and worn in the amount of time it's likely to take to fill up. You keep him in your filing box and review whenever it's time to create a new officer card. The general belongs behind the lines at HQ. You don't want to risk him on the front lines in your wallet. What's nice about adding the general like this is it gives you another mechanism to deal with overcrowding on the officer card. You have a 4th choice now for how to deal with officer tasks. 1, you can actually do them and cross them off. 2, you can honorably discharge them if they're not worth doing. 3, you can copy them over to the next officer card if you want to do them in the next about 2 weeks. Or 4, if you decide they are indeed important, but not something you're likely to get around to in the near future, reverse delegate them to the general card. This is nice because I've had a few items that I've copied over and over again on my officer card that I know I'm not really going to do in the next about 2 weeks, but don't want to forget about completely. They are crying out for a more appropriate home, and the general is that home. The other thing that's nice about this chain of command is how organic and bottom-up it is. It's a hierarchy, yes, but you always try to assign a task to the lowest possible rank first. Got an idea for something? Step 1, ask yourself if you can do it today. If so, put it on the foot soldier card. If not, kick it upstairs to the officer. If the officer can't handle it, pass the buck to the general. The buck stops there. What kinds of tasks should go on the general versus the officer versus the foot soldier? What granularity? I wouldn't obsess too much over this. The main criterion is when do you plan or hope to do it? Though, of course, if soon, it should be pretty fine-grained and concrete. But far-off tasks can be fine-grained too. For example, let's say I want to buy a printer. That task could go on any of the 3 cards depending on when I want to get it done. It's concrete and contained, certainly something I could do today, but maybe I'd rather save up some money first so I can actually afford it and do it more like 6 months from now. Then it should go on the general card. Other goals, though, make sense to express differently at the 3 different ranks and possibly simultaneously on all 3 ranks. For example, let's say I want to write a book called Systematic Moderation. Obviously not something I'm going to finish completely in a day or even about 2 weeks, but I do want to do something towards accomplishing it today and medium term. So on the general card, I could write systematic moderation write book, right? That's a long task. On the officer card, medium term, first draft of chapter 1. On the daily card, 60 minutes of writing today. 3 equal-sized physical cards capture and filter all your plans, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Just like my original vision, except now the medium and long-term cards aren't tied to any specific unit of time. Their term is dictated simply by how long they take to fill up. It's simple, Spartan, low-tech, and now complete. I can't actually comment on how well the reinstated general card works yet, because unlike the foot soldier and the officer, I've only just started it. I tend not to promulgate systems this embryonic, but I've got a real eureka feeling about this one, and the New Year's timing seems very appropriate to push it out. Because my thinking on the details of how to do task management has evolved a bit over the years, once I rack up a bit more experience with the new general to confirm or invalidate my optimism, I'll put together a summary description of the new chain of command, tying all these refinements together. And I'll make this a top-level everyday systems page. In the meantime, I promise to return to subjects other than personal productivity in these podcasts, since many of you have probably had enough of it by now and are interested in other aspects of everyday systems like diet, exercise, and habit building. Thanks for listening.